All right, everybody, welcome to our deep dive. It's going to be Bainbridge Island City Council meetings from June 2024. We are going really deep beyond just kind of the headlines into some of the hidden agendas.
Yeah.
Surprising decisions that could actually shape the island's future.
Right.
And you think about meeting minutes, you think like, oh, this is exciting as watching paint dry.
Right.
But trust me, there are some real gems buried in these documents. It's like doing a little detective work.
Absolutely. And by carefully examining these minutes, including those from the executive sessions, which are a little more secretive, we can really gain some valuable insights into the council's priorities and get a glimpse of what they might have planned for the island.
Okay, so June on Bainbridge, usually you think sunshine, you think farmer's market, but there was a fair share of council activity.
Yeah.
We had 2 regular meetings.
Okay.
And not just one, but 2 executive sessions.
Interesting.
All these closed-door discussions definitely makes you wonder what they're trying to keep under wraps, right?
Now, these closed-door meetings aren't just free-for-alls.
Right.
They have to follow strict rules.
Right.
And the one they cite, RCW 42.3.110, basically says they can only hash things out secretly if it involves really sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
Like real estate negotiations, legal matters, or personnel decisions.
Which makes sense. You wouldn't want the whole island, knowing your next move.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to something like buying property.
Right.
Which, by the way, is exactly what they were discussing in the June 11th executive session. The minutes mention selection of a site or acquisition of real estate, which sounds pretty serious.
Yeah.
And get this, they were also getting legal advice about potential litigation.
Okay.
Could be related, maybe not, but intriguing nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is where it gets interesting for you as a resident.
Right.
Real estate decisions have a direct impact on everyone on the island.
For sure.
Are they buying land for a new park, affordable housing?
Yeah.
And then there's a potential lawsuit.
Right.
Legal battles can be expensive, and those costs often trickle down to taxpayers.
It's your island, it's your tax dollars, so you have a right to know what's going on.
Right.
But just like a good thriller.
Uh-huh.
We're not going to spoil the ending just yet.
Okay.
We'll delve into the outcome of that June 11th session a bit later. For now, let's switch gears and shed some light on the public meetings.
While perhaps not as secretive,
Right.
the public meetings are where we see the council translate their discussions into concrete actions.
And let me tell you, there was no shortage of hot topics on the agenda.
Is that right?
We've got affordable housing initiatives, environmental concerns, and even a debate about, believe it or not, crematoriums.
Yes, the crematorium discussions certainly seem to touch a nerve with residents.
Oh, yeah.
It highlights the challenges of balancing diverse perspectives and priorities.
It really does. But before we dive into the great crematorium debate,
Okay.
let's start with something a little less final.
Yeah.
Affordable housing was front and center in June,
Yeah.
with the council discussing the Finch Green project. Now, don't let the name fool you. This isn't about picking out floral arrangements.
Right.
This is about addressing a critical issue that affects everyone on the island, the lack of affordable housing options.
And it appears the council is taking a multi-pronged approach to tackle this challenge.
Okay.
We see them discussing the Finch Green project, alongside plans to expand the multifamily tax exemption program, which is designed to incentivize developers to include affordable units in their projects.
Right, like offering a little financial sweetener to entice them.
Exactly.
It's a complex issue with no easy solutions, but it's encouraging to see the council actively looking for ways to make housing more attainable for everyone on Bainbridge.
Indeed, it suggests they recognize the urgency of the situation and are willing to explore various strategies to address it.
And speaking of important issues, let's move on to the environment. Always a hot topic, especially on an island as beautiful and ecologically diverse as ours.
Absolutely. Protecting our natural resources is paramount, and it seems the council is taking that responsibility seriously.
For sure, they reviewed a salmon recovery grant application because what's the Pacific Northwest without our beloved salmon?
Right.
They also discussed the Madison Avenue project, which is more than just a road improvement plan.
Right.
It's about creating a more sustainable and pedestrian-friendly transportation system, embracing the concept of complete streets,
Right.
where bikes, buses, and pedestrians are given equal priority to cars.
This suggests a commitment to reducing our carbon footprint and promoting healthier, more active lifestyles, which aligns with the island's overall environmental goals.
Exactly, but the environment discussion took a bit of an unexpected turn when Mayor Dietz requested a future discussion on, wait for it, beaver protection.
Ah, yes, our furry little dam builders.
Yeah.
It seems their role in mitigating the effects of climate change is gaining recognition.
Yeah, who knew those busy beavers could be secret weapons in the fight against climate change?
Right.
It's fascinating how seemingly unrelated topics can intersect in surprising ways.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in a beaver dam of information,
Okay.
let's get back to that crematorium debate, shall we?
Let's do it. Yeah, it definitely got people talking. The question wasn't just about the crematorium itself,
Right.
but what it represented, tradition versus progress,
Right.
local needs versus broader impacts. It really got to the heart of what kind of community Bainbridge wants to be.
And the public comment period was a testament to that. Some residents were all for it,
Yeah.
citing practicality, convenience, and even the environmental benefits of modern cremation methods.
Which surprisingly can be more eco-friendly than traditional burials, especially when you factor in land use and embalming fluids.
Exactly. But then you had others who felt it just didn't belong on Bainbridge, worrying about property values, aesthetics, and that whole not in my backyard sentiment.
It's understandable. Death is a sensitive subject, often tied to deeply held beliefs and traditions.
Right.
It's not just about logistics, it's about respecting the sanctity of a place.
Absolutely. And it seems the council felt the weight of that decision because they ultimately kicked it down the road to the Planning Commission for further review.
Yeah.
So stay tuned on that one, listeners. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But speaking of important decisions, the council also shook things up a bit internally.
Okay.
Remember that June 25th executive session we mentioned?
Yeah.
The one about personnel matters.
Indeed, it seems they were following RCW 42.30.110, specifically the part that allows for closed sessions to discuss employee performance or fill vacant positions. Sounds like someone might be getting a promotion or a talking to.
Right, and while the minutes don't reveal any juicy gossip about who's up for a raise or a reprimand, we do get a hint from the very next item on the June 25th public meeting agenda.
Okay.
The appointment of a new deputy mayor.
Ah, so the closed-door discussions lead to a changing of the guard.
Precisely outgoing, Deputy Mayor Quitsland handed the reins over to Councilmember Matthews, who will serve for the remainder of the year.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what new dynamics he brings to the table.
Indeed, sometimes even a subtle shift in leadership can influence the direction of the council's freedom. A change in priorities, or even just how they approach certain issues.
It's like that saying, new broom sweeps clean. Not that we're implying anything about the previous deputy mayor, of course. But it does add another layer of intrigue to the whole June saga, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And speaking of intrigue, shall we circle back to that June 11th executive session and uncover the mystery of the land deal?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about affordable housing, environmental concerns, even the delicate dance of death and dying.
Right.
But sometimes it all comes down to cold, hard real estate.
A wise observation land, particularly on an island, is a finite resource, and how the council chooses to utilize that resource speaks volumes about their vision for the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So remember how the minutes mentioned both selection of a site and acquisition of real estate. That always struck me as deliberate wording, like they weren't just looking to buy any old plot of land. This was about something specific.
A strategic acquisition, perhaps.
Exactly. And it turns out they had their eye on a property with a rather intriguing name, the Notch property, located at 180 Olympic Drive.
Interesting. I'm not personally familiar with that property.
Well, get this. The Notch property used to be home to a bustling car dealership. You know, shiny SUVs, those inflatable tube men waving their arms.
Yeah.
But it's been vacant for quite some time, just sitting there waiting for its next act.
And now it seems the city council might have big plans for its grand re-entry, but the question is, what are those plans?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The minutes don't explicitly state their intentions, but we can make some educated guesses based on the council's other priorities. Remember how much emphasis they've been placing on affordable housing. Could this be a prime location for a new development?
It's certainly possible the location relatively close to the ferry terminal could make it ideal for residents who rely on public transportation, but we have to consider their focus on environmental sustainability as well. Perhaps they envision a mixed-use development with a focus on green building practices and pedestrian-friendly design.
That's a good point. And let's not forget the potential legal issues they were discussing in that same executive session. Could the Notch property be somehow entangled in a lawsuit?
It's certainly a possibility. We can't rule out land ownership disputes, environmental concerns. Even zoning issues could lead to legal battles.
This is where things get really interesting for you, our listeners. We've laid out the facts, explored the possibilities, but ultimately the fate of the Notch property remains a bit of a mystery.
A mystery. We encourage you to unravel. Take a look at the property yourself. Familiarize yourself with the surrounding area. What do you think would be the most beneficial use of this land? A vibrant mixed-income housing development, a sprawling community park, or something entirely different?
And that, my friends, is your cue to put on your detective hats and do some digging of your own. Okay, so we've given you the lay of the land, so to speak.
Right.
But, the real insight comes from actually connecting the dots. We've got this, potentially pricey property purchase,
Right.
a council that is like laser focused on affordable housing, a commitment to environmental protection, all this stuff. What does it all mean?
Well, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, we don't have a crystal ball, but we can look for clues in the council's past actions and their stated priorities.
Right.
Remember, this is a group that's not afraid to make bold moves.
Yeah.
Whether it's pushing for, sustainable development or tackling these really tough issues like this crematorium debate.
They're not just going through the motions. They're really, I think, actively trying to shape the future of Bainbridge.
I think so, too.
When you look at the Notch property through that lens, it becomes clear that this isn't just about adding, another line item to the city's real estate portfolio. This is about making a statement.
Right. It has the potential to be a real game changer.
Yeah.
A concrete example of their commitment to addressing some of the island's most pressing needs.
Yeah.
But it also comes with risk.
Yeah, for sure.
Developing affordable housing can be met with resistance.
Right.
Especially on a desirable piece of property like this.
Yeah.
And then there's a question of the potential litigation.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The legal wild card. We don't know the specifics.
Right.
But it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Legal battles can be costly.
Oh, yeah.
They can be time-consuming. And that can potentially derail even the most well-intentioned projects.
Which is why it's so important for residents to stay informed and engaged.
Yes.
Attend the council meetings. Ask questions,
Yeah.
Make your voices heard, because ultimately the future of Bainbridge Island is shaped not just by the decisions the council makes, but by the active participation of its citizens.
This deep dive has been full of twists and turns.
It has.
From beaver dams to crematoriums to secret land deals. But what stands out to me is kind of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's a group of elected officials grappling with complex issues, trying to find solutions that, benefit everyone.
Yeah.
And, leave a lasting legacy on this beautiful island we call home.
And perhaps that's the most important takeaway for our listeners.
Yeah.
Don't just observe local government from a distance.
Yeah.
Dive in, engage with the process, and help shape the future of your community. It's your island, too.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
But remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
That's right.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep an eye on that Notch property. Something tells me this is just the beginning of a very interesting story.
I think you might be right about that.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.